The following program was produced by an independent community producer. The opinions expressed do not necessarily reflect those of the ECAT staff or board of directors.
And we are pleased to have one of our very own speakers, our own members of the Grange, Ed Hands. Most of you know is our town historian, and he is going to tell us about something that's not historical in one way, but in another way, it's very historical. It is planting and preparing a garden. So our ancestors, when they came to Easton, they were mainly farmers. So we are returning to that noble tradition. Thank you, Ed.
Hello, folks. Let me stick this thing on here and I'll be right with you. Maybe I can just hold it. Hi, can you hear me, Ernie? All right. So, yeah, I'm going to be talking about starting a garden from scratch. I don't know if you can, it's a little bit thick collar. Go ahead. See, I told you.
There.
All right, thank you. All right, here we go. So we're going to be talking about preparing a garden, and the quick story is you dig a hole, you put the plant in it. Worked for my dad, and it could work for you too. He was a person who planted not vegetables, but perennials. He always believed in perennials because an annual would be dead after 1 year. A perennial meant you didn't have to plant it the next year, so it was all taken care of for you. And believe it or not, that actually worked for him. However, things have become more complicated. So we're really going to be focusing on how to do a vegetable garden this year. And we, as you may know, have our own 20 by 10 foot plot at the community garden on Bay Road. And I was sending out an important, urgent message to you folks that I needed help in the garden over the weekend. And when it came time to putting the attachment on with everybody's name, didn't do that. But I got the email, so I spent the weekend in the garden. Luckily for me, Michelle Vinacourt came by, and we were able to get our very, very first donation to the food pantry out. I'd like to suggest to you all that maybe this Saturday, 1 to 4, might be a good time to come down. We're kind of staying ahead of the weeds, but if we can get some tack down, we will be able to not weed as much in the coming months. So how do you start a garden? Well, the first thing you want to do is you want to figure out what kind of plants you want to grow. So most vegetable plants need at least 6 hours of sun a day, but some plants grow well in cold weather. Some plants grow well in hot weather. So you need to decide. With global warming, plants that we used to not be able to grow, like okra, we can now grow here in Massachusetts. Watermelon, which used to be a trial, is something that can grow fairly easily. We have some watermelon in the garden right now. So decide what you want. Kale is important, but that's an early season crop, so we have that in already. Once you have your place laid out or selected, you want to lay it out so that the length of the garden goes east to west, because the sun in the summertime and for the whole year goes east to west. But in the summertime, it's up high, close to 71 degrees in the sky. So it will follow your garden along through most of the day, right above it. So that's the best way to get the most sun on it. The next thing you want to do after you decide where your plot's going to be is call 811. okay? 811 is dig safe, and you want to make sure that you don't have a gas line or a water pipe or something like that. The community garden has its own watering system, and this year, the folks that plowed the land for us moved over our middle bed just a smidge. So one of our garden members came up, drove a spike 8 inches into the ground and ruptured our water line, which gushed up like a gusher. So it's always important to know where your utilities are buried. Once that's taken care of, the next trick is to prepare your soil. And preparing your soil is something you can spend hours and hours on. We're not going to do that tonight, unless you want to. So the first thing you can do to prepare your soil, if you're starting from scratch, let's say we had a patch of garden over here in front of the rockery, and it's all lawn over there. Well, what do? You have to get rid of that lawn. There's a couple of ways. The traditional way was to double dig it, which meant you dig up the grass, set the grass aside, dig another shovel full of dirt, set that aside, and then put the grass back in the ground and bury it under the real dirt. Okay. It was incredibly time consuming, worked for nice flower beds, but kind of overkill for vegetables. Probably the best modern way to do it is to take newspaper in the fall and put it down about 5 layers thick and put some stones on top of it and just let it stay there until the spring. That will kill the grass, the roots, etc. One of the things, we don't allow that at our community garden. And one of the reasons is we're concerned about inorganic material getting into the garden. We're trying to be organic. And reading up to do this presentation, the feeling is that today's newsprint is not going to be harmful to the ground as long as you avoid the glossy parts of the paper, okay? So the Sunday supplements and all of those things you want to stay away from. And then the other quick way to do it, if you decided immediately in the spring you wanted a garden, get a rototiller and rototill it, okay? That doesn't work terribly well. That first year you're going to have to continuously weed it. This year we had a member who liked to play with his rototiller, so every garden got rototilled twice. It really helped. And he knows how to run the rototiller now, so it's really good. So once you have a bare patch of ground, the next thing you want to do is assess your soil. Most soil around here is based on what was left over after the glacier. And there are actually maps of the town that show where the good soil is and where the bad soil is. Mostly it's not so good. Langwater Farm, for instance, has one of the best patches of soil in the town. And Southeastern also has the best soil for some reason. And the answer is Southeastern has sedimentary rocks which were ground up by the glacier and turned into dirt. Up here you have granite, which didn't get ground up as much. So a lot less rocks down there. Although the members of the community garden have spent the last 10 years picking rocks out every year. So they grow. I'm sure they grow. Once you determine what your soil is going to be like, you need to know that soil is made up of 3 components. It's made up of loam, which is organic material, sand, which is fairly coarse ground up rocks, and clay, which is very, very well ground up rocks, okay? And what you're looking for in soil is a kind of a soil where you grab it and squeeze it and it makes a ball. But the ball needs to be able to be crumbled up, okay? If it doesn't crumble, it has too much clay, and that's a problem. You're going to need to put some sand in. If it has too much sand in it, it's going to be tough to keep it moist during the summertime. So you try to go for an ideal thing, and our gardens at Bay Road have been together for so long, everybody has ameliorated the soil, so in general, they're pretty good. The other thing you need to know here is the pH of the soil. New England soil tends to be very acid. Most plants like what they call pHs, which are neutral. Not so much alkaline. Alkaline's a bad problem in places like the Southwest and stuff like that. But around the pH scale goes from 1 to 14. 7 is in the middle. That's kind of where you want. 6 is okay. But there are some soils around here that have 4.5. It's acid. It's almost like vinegar. And that works really well for things like blueberries. Other than that, you want to make sure that you put some lime in it to raise up the pH, okay? So you squeeze, you get your ball, you do your pH. That's pretty much all you can do. If you're getting started, and once every couple of years, you should take a soil sample and send it to the Massachusetts Extension at University of Massachusetts. And for $22, they will do an extensive analysis of your soil and tell you what you need. Now, one thing that they won't tell you what you need is nitrogen. Nitrogen is the number one thing for plants. That's what makes them make leaves. And unless you have too much of it, the Extension Service simply assumes that every year your garden eats up all the nitrogen and you need to put nitrogen in. Okay? So they don't bother to assess that. But the other things that they do assess are potassium, calcium, magnesium, iron, and a whole bunch of other things, zinc, etc. And they also look at two bad chemicals, lead and aluminum. Lead's obviously not a good thing. Aluminum is not a good thing either, because it's not good for you to eat aluminum. Don't do that with aluminum foil, just recycle it, don't eat it. And then the one thing that they don't test that you may know about if you know anything about your soil. Up at the Tufts Farm on Canton Street, where they had the sheep all winter long, and I guess some of the sheep are still up there. That used to have an orchard. And when we tested the soil up there, one of the problems is that there was arsenic in the soil. And the reason is that that was used to kill bugs on apple trees back in the olden days, okay? So what the plan that they're doing there is that they're growing grass, and the grass will slowly take the arsenic up, and then they cut it, and after a few years it will be gone, hopefully. So the assessment from the extension, it will tell you whether you should put some lime in, whether you should put some fertilizer that has a certain amount of chemicals in it, and you can pay extra if you really want to know about your nitrogen. They will do a test, but they don't normally do it, okay? So once you find out you're almost ready to go, the first thing, or the next to the last thing you want to do is make sure that your pH is right. And even if your soil is not perfect, if your pH is close to neutral, that generally means that your plants will be able to take up the nutrients that are available in the soil. If it's too acid, most of your vegetable crops just can't do it, okay? Right before you plant, you should turn the soil again with your rototiller or a shovel and a spade. I've done the shovel and a spade method. I recommend rototillers. Somebody else on the back of the rototiller. What will happen is, depending on which way the blade is running, it will make furrows, just like a plow. And the next thing you want to do is take your soil amelioration, either compost or other organic matter, and kind of level things off. So between the furrows, which is where you put the stuff in, you want 2 to 3 inches of compost on the top, and then you just smooth the surface off, and you're ready to plant. Once the plants come up, then the next thing you want to do is pull the weeds out and mulch. And for the rest of the summer, magically, they say, you won't have to pull out any more weeds. It's not really true, but mulching will actually help make it easier to pull the weeds out. So we could talk for a long time about compost. I should warn you about compost because we had an issue last year in Massachusetts where the largest composting facility in Massachusetts was contaminated with PFAS. And so the best kind of compost is the one you make yourself. So set up a little compost bin out back and, throw your, wash your orange rinds and lemon rinds and stuff like that, and then put it into the compost, okay? If you have chickens like I do, you can put some chicken manure in there, but you need to know that manure is different. Just like I could talk for hours about how to make a shovel, I could talk for hours about manure, but I don't think you really want me to do that. Basically, what you need to do is get a manure that gets hot enough to kill the seeds that are in it. So the most commonly used manure around here is cow manure. There's a nice source over in West Bridgewater, but while it is usually not going to damage your crops by being too hot, having too much nitrogen in it, sometimes it doesn't get real hot temperature-wise to burn the weed seed, so it can be very weedy. You put it down, and then all of a sudden you have a bumper crop of weeds. Okay, but well-composted cow manure is probably your safest bet. Chicken manure is generally considered to be the premier manure because it has such a high nitrogen component, but you need to really let it sit for quite a while. If you have a horse, you can use that too, but horses, it's all about the tummy, you know. A chicken and a cow have stomachs that get all the nutrients out of the grass. The horse basically says, yeah, just eat more. I won't have to digest this stuff. I'll just pass it on through. So horse manure is not as well ready to go as a compost, but it's safe. Same thing with rabbit manure. If I had my druthers, however, the one that I would use the most is alpaca manure. It generally is considered to be excellent because you don't have to let it sit for very long. It's not hot, but it has a good amount of nitrogen in it, and it's nice and clean. It doesn't smell bad. And if you go to the farmer's market at Langwater, the folks that make your socks that have the alpacas there in the fall and spring will have bags of alpaca compost. So I would recommend that. So I'm going to stop there, and I'll take any questions you might have. And we've all done a garden, so why should you have any questions, right? Uh-oh, Bill's going to have questions.
What about wood chucks?
They don't make good fertilizer.
Do you have to put a fence around things?
Yeah, the garden down at Wheaton Farm on Bay Road has a 7-foot tall fence, which is enough to discourage a deer from jumping over it. If it was really hungry, it could clear the fence. But we've never had a deer problem down there. Thankfully, Kevin O'Dwyer from Langwater has open fields, and deer aren't stupid. I could either jump a 7-foot fence or just walk over here and start munching away. So Kevin deals with that issue for us. Woodchucks and rabbits are a big problem because a woodchuck will actually chew through our fencing and then waltz through, dig a burrow. The very first year we were there, we had a big burrow right in the middle, and he was there the whole time. And then finally we convinced him to move on. Okay. Yeah, we put the smoke bomb down his hole and off he went. Any other questions?
I have a question.
Yes.
So I planted my garden probably about 2.5 weeks ago.
Uh-huh.
The plants are still the exact same size.
Yeah. Congratulations. They're alive, huh?
They're alive. They're very healthy, but they have not grown at all.
And how big are they? Okay, you're fine. Everybody has had that same problem this year. Our garden for the Grange had the same problem. Everything starts to grow, and then it says, I'm going to take a little bit of a break, and then all of a sudden it takes off again. And partly it's due to the fact that the weather was a little bit cool this year. Not cold like last year where everything froze, but cool, and rainy, and that slowed things down. You might want to add a little bit of fertilizer, a little bit of nitrogen, and other than that, you should be okay. Oh, we have Priscilla? Oh, sorry, Priscilla.
Thank you, Ed. Wasn't that interesting? Marvelous talk. And for those viewers out there, we have an expert farmer right here at the Grange. So why don't you join us on the third Monday of every month, except January and February. And we have supper at 6 o'clock. You can see everybody has just enjoyed their meal and dessert. And so come and join us. We'd love to meet you and check us out. Thank you very much again, Ed, for a wonderful presentation.